Shabbat Shalom, everyone. So last night, I spoke a bit about this week's Parsha from the perspective of the idea that it is a fundamental Parsha for us as Jews conceptually, right? It focuses on the question of free will, of choice, and I made the argument last night that without choice, without free will, our tradition really doesn't have a lot of meaning, right? It's based on the idea that we have the ability to choose. This morning, I actually want to do a little bit of a deep dive into the very first pasuk, the very first verse of our parsha. And you can find that on page 1061 in the red Humashim that are in front of you, the Eitz Chaim Humashim. The first pasuk reads, Re'eh, Anochi noten lifnechem hayom bracha uklala. See, this day I set before you blessing and curse. Now, the rest of the parsha stems from that and goes into that conversation about choice, but this pasuk is unusual. And it's unusual in three different ways, in three different places. First, it starts with this word re'eh, see. Second, we're going to see a grammar issue in this pasuk that confounded the rabbis. And third, we're going to have this sort of parallelism between, or two sides between blessings and curses. And we're going to talk about all three to get an understanding of what this pasuk can teach for us. But before I share with you some of the rabbinic views, what do we learn from this verse? How do you read this verse in 21st century San Diego? Because it's a challenge. It's a little bit of a challenge. It's not really speaking in language that we often use today. So what does this verse say to you? Alan.
We have choices, so I'm going to make a choice. And depending on which choice I make, it may lead me down a road to blessing, maybe lead me down a road to curse. And the word see is, I have to know I have a choice. Some people just go through life and do things, but I'm actually seeing that there's a choice, so I've got to make a choice.
Good. So, for those playing on our home game and couldn't hear through the microphone, Alan argues the fact that we have choices, right? We have choices, and the consequences of those choices down the road may lead us to different things, depending on the choice that we make. It could lead us to a blessing, it could lead us to a curse, and Alan said that the word re'eh, the word see, in the beginning is there just to kind of almost make sure that we know we have that choice, to catch our attention, almost. To make sure we know we have that choice. Anybody else? Milt.
First, you probably knew it's the Re'eh itself, which is a very odd statement. It's a passive verb. We think it appears to command. But secondly, we also think of our obligations, mitzvot, as things that we are required to do. And it's here, God's going to say, you're making choices.
Oh, I like that.
It's over and out.
So we're going to get back to the word re'eh. We're going to look at that in a second. But the second piece that you said, right, we in Judaism often think of the mitzvot as commandments, right? We are required to do this. There doesn't seem to be, in the framework of how commandments are given down, a choice. That's the idea of the word command, right? But it's bringing an underlying truth that we always have a choice. Right? We always have a choice. Are we going to follow these commandments, or are we not going to follow these commandments? Okay? Anybody else? Yvonne.
I'm looking at the last part of the sentence where it says that other gods whom you may not have experienced. So I look at it's not enough to just make that choice one time and you're going to follow them, but you're going
Yeah, so a couple of things that you noticed grammatically about this. In the English, the punctuation is such that the one sentence is 3 verses, which is not usual, right? Usually, by the time we get to the end of a verse, unless we're in, Psalms or Proverbs that are poetic and stuff like that, by the time we get to the end, it's the end of a sentence. But this idea, this sentence actually goes for 3 verses, and, it's something that is different. It's not something that everybody else does. This is a unique set of choices. Well, maybe the choices aren't unique, but our relationship with God puts it within a unique framework for us. Good. Anything else? Oh, we've got a couple people now. You guys get to decide which one's first. Okay.
What strikes me is that you said see versus hear, because most of the things we hear are hear what God is saying, and in this case it's see.
Yeah.
As an educator, it's like recognizing that people learn different ways.
Nice.
Some people are auditory, some people are visual. Now, it doesn't have kinesthetic and all the things we now know, but it indicates that there's some knowledge that people need to be told and taught multiple ways.
Yes. So what Hillary is saying here is really important, which is the word choice of re'eh is a little unusual, right? We're used to hearing, right? We're used to hearing the Torah say, and God said to Moses, and, Shema, we heard that, we sang that earlier. That's the word we normally associate with this action. But re'eh, to see, is unusual. And it even, by the way, sounds unusual in English, right? When we translate it into English, they did see here, but this is often, we think of this more archaic. Behold, right? That's what's being said here. Behold, right? It's more than just see. It's see and understand, but we're going to get back to that in a second. Yeah, Marge.
So mine was kind of a variation on that because I was thinking that it was saying pay attention.
Mm-hmm.
It's telling you to pay attention, that there are 2 aspects.
Yes, Sforno actually reads it just the way that you do, Marge, and this idea of pay attention, right? That it's not the visual moment, it's the entirety of the moment of pay attention, and the fact that they use a different word is there to make us pay attention to this pay attention, right? And that's why they change it. Josh, did you want to say something or?
It's just an add-on to the previous comment, which is the 3 things that we're talking about here: seeing something, hearing something, and then the consequence of a curse. You can connect that even to when Moses comes down from Sinai with the 10 Commandments, right? People are hearing the 10 Commandments read, they can see the tabernacles, they're engaged in behavior that causes essentially a curse,
Right.
The destruction of the tablets. And then to connect with what Rabbi Kornberg said earlier, it's not enough for us to just hear what our choices are. We have to see those choices, we have to embrace them through our conduct, otherwise we have to live with the consequences of those choices.
Yes. Good. Let's actually dig into this word re'eh for a second. Because not only is it unusual, but if you look at this pasuk, it's grammatically incorrect. Right? Re'eh, anybody speak Hebrew here? Right? What number is re'eh? Is it singular or plural? Singular. Right? And what's the sentence, or who's being spoken to? Lifnechem is plural. So we've got a grammatical inconsistency here of the verb being framed in the singular. You, individual, see, because I am placing before all of you, plural, this choice. What do we make of that? Right? What do we make of that? How do we make sense of this inconsistency? What does it mean that God is speaking to me as an individual, but then speaking at the same time? F.
Again, it ties the responsibility in the mass. Your individual responsibility, you got to make those choices.
Excellent, right? You can't just, it's so easy when God is saying, or when anybody is saying, all of you make sure that so we turn off the lights when we leave. Well, who's going to actually do it? Right? More often than not, everybody's going to leave and those lights are still going to be on. But when you say, hey, folks, we all agree it's really important for all of us to turn off the lights so we save energy, make sure you do that on the way out, right? That changes things. That changes things. We talk about the communal responsibility, the communal idea. We all agree it's important to do that, right? But we each have that personal responsibility in all of this. The Re'eh is to each one of us individually. To each one of us individually. So we have this verse that sets up now individual responsibility for communal actions. Are the blessings and curses individual or communal? Doesn't say, right? Those words are not set in any specific number per se. It can go either way. Maybe it's a communal blessing or communal curse. Maybe it's an individual blessing, an individual curse. It's left ambiguous. It's left ambiguous. And so we find ourselves in this strange human reality of choice, right? Understanding that the choices that we make affect not only ourselves, but affect others that are around us. The realities of the others that are around us affect our individual choices in ways sometimes that we don't even recognize, we don't even understand. And somehow, we're all supposed to find the accountability and responsibility in this together. And that's what's missing here, right? Normally, we say, okay, if I'm going to say, hey, it's important to turn off the lights, please turn off the lights. If those lights stay on, guess who I'm going to call? Right? Guess who I'm going to call? I'm going to call F, because there's that sense now of accountability. I know what I'm supposed to do. He knows what he's supposed to do. Everything is good to go. But that's missing here, right? That's missing here. There's no sense of accountability until we get into the later parts of the Parsha, right? The later parts of the Parsha are what set up our personal accountability. They talk about how it is that we're supposed to do all of this. The section that Josh is going to be reading that I'm going to talk to him about later has to do with kashrut. The end of this parsha is all about the holidays, right? Within it, it goes into, so what does all of this mean? What does all of this mean? And it sets, this pasuk then sets the framework, I would argue, not just for this parsha, but actually the rest of the book of Deuteronomy. For me, Re'eh is I'm not sure of the grammar. Deuteronomy means second telling. What would be third? It would be but triometry? Triomony? I don't know. Anyhow, a third telling, right? We almost start again here with this Re'eh. Everything that has been told up to this point in time has been told the first time through in the book of Exodus as it was happening. We started Deuteronomy with this second telling of, okay, here are the things that are important, but now we stop. And Moses says, okay, this is not just philosophy. This is not just theology. Here's where the rubber meets the road. Re'eh, look, see. And I'm going to come back and I'm going to end with this idea of see because I think it was a conscious choice to use that sense. That sense is the one, and In today's day and age of deep fakes and all of that, even our sense of sight is not always, we can't always trust it. But for the most part, up until we got into AI and the modern world, our sense of sight was something that we trusted the most out of any of our senses. Right? We even say that in English. I saw it with my own eyes. That means, well, I can trust it. Right? I saw it with my own eyes. I can trust it. And so instead of saying just Shema, hear, look at the world around you. Look at the consequences that are going to happen. See it with your own eyes before you make those choices. Because we can be fooled. And we are fooled. And what sounds like something may actually be something else. And what we think might be a blessing may in fact be a curse. And this word, see, that causes us to stop before we move on with our actions, gives us that moment to truly decide, to truly choose, and not have those choices made for us by the inertia of what's going on with our life. Any comments or questions on this before we actually now go into some of the details of how it is that we can make these choices within our lives? All right. Shabbat Shalom, everybody.